You're watching Public Affairs. Berkowitz is my name, and politics is our game. And we will be doing lots of politics today because we have as our guest Sam Polan. He is running in the 9th Congressional District Democratic primary. What are you going to do, perhaps, as a congressperson to impact domestic policy? The biggest thing.
So I'll say this. I'll back up big picture. Right now, the biggest issue is that I think the social contract between the American government and the American people is fundamentally broken. And the way I view that is the government is responsible for the big things. That's inflation, that is energy policy, that's foreign policy, it's security, it's public safety. That's the government's responsibility. The people who elect them and put them there, their responsibilities are the day-to-day things. That's putting food on the table. That's making sure their kids get to school on time. That's making sure that they can live their lives the way they want to and actually pursue their greatest aspirations in the world, pursue happiness in their own regard. That's their responsibility.
I mean, where do schools come in?
With
Because
affordability?
I didn't hear you say schools. Who's responsible for making sure that our kids learn how to read? Forget the fancy stuff like the schools you went to, which were good schools.
They were good
right?
schools.
Washington College and Maryland, right? Good school for people who don't know.
Yeah.
American University, what you learned in the military, all good schooling, right?
Yeah.
You learned how to read probably when you were 3, maybe even before you went to schools in Wilmette, right?
Yep, I learned how to read watching my mom read to my older siblings.
Do you know that only 10 to 20% of the kids at CPS for the last 25 years, 10 to 20% read at grade level? I'd swear on the Bible.
No, and that's...
Do you doubt that?
No, I don't at all. I've seen that statistic.
And you know,
I think
around
that's a
the
real
state
problem.
of Illinois, of which the 9th is part, on average, about, at best, 40% read at grade level.
Yeah.
60%.
No,
Some would
that's...
say they don't even, it's not that they don't read at grade level, they don't read. We in Illinois, and I haven't heard a politician of anybody say that. And I really, maybe Bruce Rauner, when he was here as governor, said that because he had Invest in Kids we can come to. Pritzker's been there, Governor Pritzker, for 7 years. You ever hear him say that?
No.
Jan Schakowsky, she's been Congresswoman for 28 years. You ever hear her say that?
No, never heard talk about that.
The mayor,
achievement
Brandon
gap.
Johnson, you ever hear him say that?
Not about the achievement gaps, no. And I think that's...
You know Evanston, part of the 9th CD?
Yeah.
What's the achievement gap there? Ballpark.
Ballpark.
What do whites read at grade level and what do blacks read at grade level? Let's put it stark. On average, what's your best guess? Evanston Township High School.
What the disparity is, I would say probably a 20 to 30% disparity.
More. Probably we're lucky. Blacks read maybe 20% read at grade level. Whites 70 to 80%.
Right. And that's
20 to 80, that's like 60.
right.
Maybe if you want to say that's a 30% mark. It's terrible.
Yeah.
Mayor Daniel Biss is one of your opponents. Dan, come on. We want to be fair. We'd like to hear from him, okay? He was on my show as state rep, state senator. So Daniel Biss has been mayor of Evanston for 5 years. You live now, where do you live?
I live in Wilmette.
Wilmette. But you hear what's going on in Evanston.
Yes,
That's
of course.
the district you're running in. Have you ever heard him say that? Have anybody ever told you that he's talked about this issue that you and I are talking about?
No, I've never heard him talk about it during the forums I'm at. I've never heard people talking about him as being a...
In fact, most people running as your opponents don't talk about it.
No, this is something that hardly comes up during the forums that we go
Why?
to.
Don't people care?
I don't think it's that people care. I think that we are...
You don't think it's that people don't care?
I think when we were at these forums that there are specific issues that people want to bring up. But I also think that, when we do these forums, a big problem we run into is the fact that it's a Democratic primary. We're asked questions that are pretty ballpark.
Well, wouldn't you
reasonable.
want to distinguish yourself?
Yes,
Maybe
absolutely.
at the next forum, say the hell with that question. I'm taking this one. You could do that.
Yeah.
They're not going to shoot you if you do, right? They may frown.
I don't know. Some of those timekeepers are a little nastier than others, and
We'll give it a shot. Say Berkowitz put me up to it.
Berkowitz put it on. Okay.
Yeah,
I'll throw you under the bus on that. That's no
Yeah,
problem.
okay. But the point is, okay, that's an issue.
Yeah, of course it is.
Crime's an issue.
Crime's an issue. Schools are an issue.
Property taxes are an issue.
Property taxes are an issue. But you know what? And here's where it gets very, very complicated.
Yeah.
Because public school systems, especially, that is a local issue. However, the federal government has a role to play in that as well. And when it comes to the economy, when it comes to affordability and property taxes, all those things are intertwined when it comes to public school and how effective schools are. The better a school is, the more desirable a neighborhood is. More people want to move there, property value goes up, property taxes in turn go up. That money goes to those public schools then. So it's a system that kind of self-replicates, but also kind of leads into more money. And the better the school does, the more money it gets.
But it's not, because we've just said in Evanston, whites are probably reading at grade level 70 to 80%, and blacks maybe 20, 30 at best percent,
Yeah.
and Hispanics in that same area.
Mm-hmm.
So it ain't just a money problem, because the same money's getting spent, I think, in most of the Evanston schools on average, right?
Right. No, it's never just a money issue. I'm just saying when you want to talk about these like quality of life things or these community issues, they're all connected, and that's my point. And there's no one shoe fits all, one silver bullet option
Your
that'll fix
solution
everything.
You're running, is it the bully pulpit? And what would you say on your bully pulpit to fix it? Not in 10 years, but
Yeah.
next year.
Oh, next year.
At least start. Do something different.
I think schools need to be held accountable for the performance of their students.
What does that mean?
That means really addressing the root cause of why they are not achieving
how
at the
to
levels
read?
they are supposed to be reading.
Right.
That's
What's the root cause?
I don't know. And that's truthfully it. Like, I'm not going to sit here and pretend that I know every single answer to everything. That's just not a realistic thing.
So in 30 seconds, just we got to change. Sorry for so much on this, but if we spend in Evanston, I think at least say $28,000 per kid per year.
Yeah.
Maybe less in Chicago, oddly, but I think so.
Mm-hmm.
So we take that's the city of Evanston, the property tax money that's coming in, that's the state money that's coming in, that's the federal money that's coming in, 28,000. If you could, take all that money, put it in a backpack, strap the backpack on the kid, the parents and the kid decide they want to stay there, they want to go to a Jewish day school, they want to go to a parochial school, they want to go to a private school. Let's say all those schools would take the money gladly.
Yeah.
And they promise them they'll do better on teaching them how to read.
Mm-hmm.
And so just say, if somebody said, here's a suggestion, Sam, why don't
Yeah.
you go with this? And could they be any worse off if you gave them that choice?
No, but I think, in these types of issues, these types of questions are not a this or that. I think there's.
No, I made it a this or that. You
Okay.
got two choices. Keep doing the same damn thing, because you can't change a lot next year, but at least come up with a proposal. And if people disagree, that's a benchmark option.
So I would disagree.
So give me your benchmark option.
I would disagree with that, and here's why. Because you're fundamentally taking money away from the public school system that would be there. And
Not necessarily.
I believe
you know who's
schools-
taking the money away? The parent who says, I want my kid to learn how to read.
Right.
You're for parents. You're for parental control. You're for individual control. That person's taking the money away so their kid can learn how to read. They're not taking all of it.
Right.
If 50% of the parents say, we're taking it, well, then that's a big factor. But they want to do that if they make that choice.
Yeah. And I believe, there is conversation worth having where some schools are better fits for students, or if parents want to have some options of where their kids can go. I'm all for that. But I'm saying the issue is when money is being taken away from the public school system, it becomes an infrastructure issue. And that's kind of the way I look at it. And that's why I talk about government being big picture.
They shorten it. As you may know, in CPS, and I don't know what it is in Evanston, in CPS, something like, a third of the schools are at 50% or less utilization, or vice versa.
Yeah.
A tremendous number of schools. It's easy the day you're there. There are schools at 900 capacity, and they got 30 students, and 0 kids are reading at grade level. Number of schools like that.
Right. But also with that, the number of enrollment that you just mentioned, that also helps, that actually skews that number that you're saying. There's $24,000 being spent per student because the school got allocated a budget. If enrollment's down, that allocated budget still exists. So that number of how much money being spent
Those
per
schools
student,
are spending $90,000.
that's a skewed.
That's even worse.
Right, it is worse. But I'm saying, statistics.
Okay.
I'm always very wary of statistics because you can use them to say what you want to say.
Okay. So fix the crime problem. You got a bully pulpit. Maybe crime is not much controlled by the federal government, but somewhat. And even if it isn't, you got a bully pulpit. People respect you. You're a congressman.
Right. So
give me your minute to do a major improvement of safety. Where do you attack? What do you start doing to make the 9th Congressional District residents safer?
So I will always support more funding for police stations and police officers and police departments. I really will.
But that ain't the whole problem. What else? Police, more police. That's fine.
More
What
police, more community, more options for the community, more social programs.
What is when a person commits a violent
Yeah.
crime, trace out the process for. First, you have to identify the person. You have to find probable cause, and you have to arrest.
Correct.
Let's say you've done that. What do you do after you arrest?
Right.
Do
So
you know?
the
Tell people, because not everybody knows.
after the arrests, they have to be arraigned and they can be bailed or they can be moved to a
Detained or
facility.
not. We're not going to go into the Safety
Okay.
Act and all that.
Yeah, yeah.
Say they've done this 15 times. Should the judge consider, they can under the Safety Act, consider that and decide they're dangerous.
Yes.
And if they decide they're dangerous to themselves or the community, they can detain them.
I agree with that.
Should they go through that and consider the relevant criteria? A hearing will be presented, those data by the prosecutor. If the judge thinks they're dangerous, she said, I think we need to detain them. Not do electronic monitoring where they cut off the thing.
No, and I think that's a great point.
Okay.
I think we've become very lax on the criminal process.
We only got a minute.
I know. I think this idea that people are kind of cut loose and hopefully they won't do it again. I don't think that's a realistic, and I don't think that's a responsible way of
The judge
enforcing
should
the law.
say, the judge should say, no, while we're waiting for trial, you're detained. You're here in jail.
Yeah,
That's what
and
it
then
is.
if that's what, and you know, if the judge has the reason to believe that, and that's well within their
And
legal
then there's a
parameters,
trial,
then yes, they
and
should
then a jury of
absolutely
their
stay.
peers convict, say,
Yeah.
and they're convicted, and then the judge decides the sentence.
Right.
And often they say probation. People know probation means what? How much time do they do when he says probation? Or
Right.
she says?
Right.
0, right? They're out. Would you do that? Somebody, this is their second violent crime convicted of.
So-
rape and assault. You'd put them out there again?
No, I would not.
So you say to the judge, to hell with that. I want this, as a prosecutor, I want you to sentence them to 2 years
Okay.
time.
But here's the
Would you
issue.
do that? Would you try to galvanize people to say, get the prosecutors who do this, get the judges who do this, and if they're not doing them, out with the judges, out with the prosecutors. Would you do that?
So I would personally, yes. But here's
personally,
no,
that's
here's
what
the
you're doing.
conversation.
You're
But here's the
running for Congress,
conversation.
right?
Here's the conversation. We have a separation of powers that is not the Congressional's purview. However, I would support that, and I do think the American people as a whole, and
You
I
got
do
a
think
bully
people in the
pulpit. You
yes,
got-
and I do
excuse me,
believe
you got a
people.
bully pulpit. don't
I
you?
understand that,
Okay.
but so does the judge. But here's the deal.
Judge has a bully pulpit?
Yeah,
I
everyone.
don't see them on the stump. They got a nice lifetime job, essentially, if Circuit Court of County. What does it pay now? 200,000?
Yeah, I think so. I've seen a lot of very
don't see them
outspoken
on the
judges. Here's my point. I would absolutely recommend giving law enforcement teeth back, giving prosecution teeth back, and actually
Giving
make
them what?
their teeth back,
Oh.
and actually punishing which accordance with the crime. Because the reality
So
is,
you think the judges want to punish, but they can't?
I can't speak for behalf of specific judges, but
in general, that's
but
your
generally I do think so, and I also think prosecutors do want that, and I think the American people really are tired of feeling unsafe and tired of looking over their shoulder in their own communities, and I think that is an absolute
We
issue.
have to wrap soon, so try to have you back.
Sure.
What's the most important federal substantive issue that you could maybe, like, is it healthcare? Okay, that's a really good example. Why? Because healthcare is up for decision right now in
Yes, it
Congress,
is.
right?
Yep. Yeah,
Tell me what's up for, in a minute.
So
What's
the
up for
Affordable
decision
Care
and
Act
what would you do?
is up for decision, and
What is up? More subsidies for Obamacare.
more
right?
subsidies for Obamacare, but
1 year, 2
also
years, 3
limiting,
years,
yeah,
right?
and then also limiting types of coverage.
Democrats want to do that. That's the
Right.
Democratic majority. They want more subsidies. What do
Right.
the Republicans want?
Right.
No, what do the Republicans want?
The Republicans want to peel back the subsidies available, but also kind of get the spending under control. They want to also be able to limit what people can opt into as far as coverage and coverage
Well,
concerns.
savings accounts.
Yes, exactly. They want people to have the
They
options.
want to slow down or stop the subsidies because Obamacare was supposed to be more efficient, not something that's subsidized for the next century.
Right. And
Okay, so now
I agree
you're in
with that.
Congress. Democrats had a bill. Republicans had a bill. They each got 51 votes. How many does it take to pass the Senate?
60.
60.
Good.
So you're there. What do you got to do? What's your job if you want to address this issue?
So
Now,
my
just tell me, what's in simple numbers, what do you got to do?
you have to convince enough people to actually get forth. So
You got to find 60 votes.
you got to find 60 votes for the
You got to
Senate.
get a plan.
Gotta get a plan.
Give
If
me
you-
your plan in 30 seconds and then how you'll find 60 votes.
So we need to streamline Obamacare. The plan is to recognize that it is not the most efficient thing on earth, and it has room to improve. That's something we can acknowledge. That's something we can be honest about.
Can you come up with
We
a
streamline-
proposal that gets 60 votes for streamlining Obamacare? Would you work with Republicans to do that?
I would.
You have to.
Yes, you have to. And that
They're only 53.
and that speaks to a bigger issue we can get
Republicans,
into.
47 Democrats.
That's a bigger issue we can get into is where a lot of people in this race are just, they're unwilling to work with anybody that disagrees with them, but they also, I've heard them say
But
in
you
person.
are willing to work.
I am absolutely
because
willing.
that's what you've done in the military.
Correct.
That's you've worked across countries, across religions, across everything.
I have
right?
found common ground.
That is your strength.
That is my strength. I found common ground with people who I absolutely find despicable in foreign nations, but I needed to do my mission. And that's the reality. My responsibility was getting the mission done. That meant I had to go through who I had to go through to get it done. Congress right now, and many people in this race are not willing to do that. They're not willing to say, I don't agree with you on everything, so I'm not going to agree with you on anything. And that's not responsible. That's not leadership.
You got to find the 60 votes.
You got to find the 60 votes where, you can't
That's
tell me.
for the Senate if you're
Right.
rising. And in the House, you got to find, 218 votes, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's tough because you don't got 218 Democrats party line vote.
No,
you lose.
Well, that's just it. I don't believe in party line voting. I think every issue, as in the responsibility you have as a congressperson, is to do your job and try to pass legislation. So this idea that, well, we don't have the numbers, let's wait till next time, that's not an acceptable thing for me. That's unrealistic. You have to actually go out, address people, and find things you have in common or find common ground on certain issues and work through that together, because that's your job. Your job is to legislate. Your job is to govern. This idea that we don't have the numbers, I'm going to pack it in and just wait, then why would we send anybody there? That's my issue.
You don't want to wait. You want to do it now.
I want to do it now.
Okay, so you come back soon and often. We hope to see you again.
I'd love to.
You're running for Congress in the 9th Congressional District primary.
Mm-hmm.
You think you can win. You think even if Kat and Biss keep their votes as polled, you think there's 50, 60% undecided. You have enough votes in that 50, 60% with a very fractioned,
Well, that's just it.
divided thing. You think you can win.
I do.
So you're telling people, vote for me, and you can win, right?
I can win, and here's why I
But
can.
you don't have time other than 20 seconds to tell them how, and then we're done.
I can win because I think people are ready for people who are willing to be honest and have a reasonable conversation, and someone who's actually worked in the government and understands how the government works and understands how things can actually get pushed through.
So you're saying
that's what
ready,
I can do.
They're ready for Sam Polan to be the congressman from the 9th CD, right?
I think people are ready for reasonable adults to be back in the room who are willing to be honest about what's happening in this country, what's happening in the district, and have realistic conversations about what can be done. This whole us versus them thing, we can't keep doing that. We need people who are willing to recognize the situation as it is, work with people who you may disagree with on some stuff, but if there's things you can agree on, you have to talk to those people and you have to govern with them.
You come back,
I will absolutely come back.
and you come back next week and every week to Public Affairs.